I'd now like to welcome Dr. Susu Thatun.
Good evening. Thank you, Anna, for that introduction. I'm really very happy to be part of this Just One World initiative and use this forum to share some of my experiences on the ground working on the issue of human trafficking with you. We know that the global community has been fighting against trafficking for the past well over a decade. But despite our unwavering effort to combat trafficking, we know that the traffickers are always ahead of us. They are ahead of us in terms of their investment. They are ahead of us in terms of their resources. For example, in the early 2000s, the UN estimated that human trafficking was a $7 billion industry. Now in 2007, the UN estimates that it's a $32 billion industry. So you can see that they are far ahead of all of us put together. And today, in 2007, it was also estimated that there are altogether 600 to 700,000 trafficked women, men, and children across the international borders. And of that, annually, 600 to 800,000 annually being trafficked across international border. And of that, 80% are considered women. As Anna said, I would like to present on the case of human trafficking from the on-the-ground experience from the bottom up. And I would like to share with you and begin this with the recent case that I was involved in. The Thai case, which I would like to refer to as the Ranong case, of the 56 Burmese migrant workers who suffocated to death in a refrigerated meat truck in Thailand as they were being moved from the port city of Ranong to the tourist city of Phuket. I think you've all heard of Phuket. This is some 300 kilometers away, and if you're going by car, it would take you some 6 to 7 hours. Phuket is a city which is frequented by a lot of rich locals, but also its main industry is catering to foreign tourists. On April 9th, 120 of 2008, 20 migrant workers were packed into a truck measuring 6 meters by 2.2 meters. They were packed in like sardines. Of these 120 people, 71 were male and 46 female, and of that, 24 were children. They were squeezed in, and this truck had no outside view. Actually, I had some pictures to show, but I didn't get the police clearance to show these pictures, so I wasn't able to share these pictures with you. I was able to interview some of the survivors, and my interview with them told me that they had no understanding of the conditions under which they would be traveling, or the type of work that they would be doing at the end of that experience. All they knew was they had to give 5,000 baht, which is the equivalent of 160 US dollars, for this journey. And for people in Myanmar, whose earning was less than $2 a day, that was a lot of money. An hour into the journey, the ventilation broke down. They banged on the walls of the truck for the driver to stop. He didn't stop. The driver later testified that he couldn't stop because of fear that the police would find out. And by the time he pulled the truck off the road, 56 people had already died. I'm going to share with you 3 brief stories from this. The reason I have their permission to share this story with you, the reason I share is because all the time we are concerned about statistics, we are concerned about the numbers. I want to give you the face of what we are dealing with today. And I hope that based on the stories that we hear, we will be, as those people involved in fighting human trafficking, we would be able to implement better programs through the stories that we have documented. The first story is of a mother and her 8-year-old child who left their village because a month back the husband had died and they had no means to support themselves. She borrowed money for this journey and traveled to the Thai side. In the truck, her 8-year-old child had screamed for air and begged her to make it better. She wasn't even able to lift the child up to soothe her, because there was simply no space in the truck for her to bend over and pick up her little girl. As she talked to me, she was overcome with guilt because she herself had felt faint and she didn't have the energy to pick up her child. The second story is of a 15-year-old who finished his 9th grade and who was going to go on to his 10th grade in Myanmar. 10th grade is like year 12 in Australia. But of course, in Myanmar, the tertiary institutions are very few and the competition is much higher. He had come because he needed to save money to put himself through school the following year. He survived, but his friend died. The third story is about a couple who were in their 20s. They were married a few weeks before they decided that they needed to start a family. They needed to leave the place they were in because there were no opportunities. The short is, his wife died, and it's very difficult for him to face the reality. Of course, I could go on about all these pictures, or all these stories. But what is important for us is, while it is important for us to not forget the human face, we also need to make sure that we learn something from this. So the information that we've gathered from the survivors, what does it show us? It shows us a number of vulnerabilities that make these people easy targets or potential victims of trafficking. For example, they had no or limited economic opportunities in their home community. Many of the women that I interviewed only had primary education. The men had secondary education. I think 2 of them finished high school. They were all in dire economic situation. This was their first time to migrate. They had no information whatsoever about what could happen on the Thai side. They just had this glossy picture of the destination community. They didn't know what type of work they would be doing. They didn't know what kind of salary they could expect. Now, such kind of information is critical for us working in the place or in the country of origin to prevent trafficking from taking place. The information from this case, what it does is it reinforces the need for us, those of us working on trafficking, to focus on vulnerability reduction in our initiatives, which includes putting in place viable economic alternatives. The second point that we need to note from this is, given the economic disparity between countries like Thailand and countries like Myanmar,